Good morning, you guys, and welcome back to my channel. We are standing in the hallway that is off to the side of the entryway. We're going to finally get working on this hallway today. I'm really excited about it. We're going to be skim coating the walls and color drenching in the same color as the entryway as well. It just flows better, I feel like, for this little area over here on the side of the house. So I'm not just going to show you all the same stuff from the skim coating video that I've already done. So I thought today I would kind of talk through a little bit, while we're doing this part of the hallway, through some of the mistakes that I made. I feel like if you're thinking of DIYing the skim coating instead of hiring someone to do it as well, that knowing some of the mistakes that I made before you start may help you to avoid them. So first one I'm just going to start with was the preparation actually. So yes, I did tape off like the floor, put plastic down. I did all that kind of stuff that you would normally do, like if you're painting or doing something to the walls, but I failed to clean out like our coat closet, for instance. So in this room in particular, we have a linen closet with all of our towels and some extra blankets and things, and so I'm going to be packing all of those away sort of in a box and have them sit in a convenient spot elsewhere in the house so we can still access all that stuff. But then that way when I do go to sand, the sand particles won't get through the door cracks and get all over our towels, because what I had to do was wash every single coat that we had in our coat closet. I had to dust every single like board game off and just clean the entire inside of that closet. And I could have avoided all of that extra work if I would have just prepped correctly. Also, I think a good little tip while you're about to sand is the bottoms of the doors. I think what I'll do is I'll just put some plastic on the bottoms as well, so that those cracks underneath don't get dust up through them. There may still be some dust. I'll still have to probably wipe everything down, but I think that will help avoid the majority of the mess getting inside the closets and inside the other rooms. By doing that, you can help avoid having a lot extra cleanup. So the next thing was probably tool variety. So if you'd noticed during that video, I mainly used just one tool, which was a taping knife. It's probably about 12 to 14 inches wide, but I will say it would have been helpful to have smaller sizes. So like any putty knives or anything like that probably would have been a little bit easier. There are some kind of tight spaces, especially in between the doors, like as you can probably see right here between the closet and the bathroom, and then like between the kids' rooms and stuff, there's just tiny areas that smaller putty knives and things will help me smooth out the joint compound a little easier. And one thing that did help as well was like a little foam brush to get into some of the weird crevices like that you can't reach into, to kind of push the joint compound in there too. So I think just having a little bit more variety in your tools and not just getting one tool will probably help you as well, so that you have that availability to just go grab something else and make it a little easier on yourself. Speaking of tools, I think it's important to have enough of the tools that you need. So I didn't actually show this part in the skim coating video. So one of the things that I did was with the paint nap roller, I washed it. After that very first coat that I did, I rinsed it all out to wait the 12 hours for the walls to dry. And then the next day when I went back to use it again, it actually started to shed, and I didn't know that would happen. I thought that, just washing it and reusing it would be fine, and it was not. Now, the material that I was using, it was a knit nap roller for like rough surfaces and things like that, which was fine, but reusing it over and over again just doesn't work like I thought it would. So I ended up having to go all the way to the store and purchase like a couple more to be able to get through the other couple of coats that I had. I will also say, just for convenience sake really, especially for a project of this size, even though these rooms aren't particularly large, I did a lot. I mean, it was, 4 walls and a ceiling basically. And yes, there's like little cutouts and doorways and such, but it was still quite a bit. And this room will be small too, but the same. It's still quite a bit of work. So I think for convenience sake, if I would have been able to have the actual 5-gallon bucket where I could mix with the drill mixer attachment that I had got for that purpose, and then have a, the little grate inside the 5-gallon bucket to use to roll, instead of having to mix it in a paint tray and roll it just took a little longer every time, because every time I had to get more joint compound, it took me a little bit to hand mix it and then put it on the wall. So it just added a little bit more time than probably, I mean, if you're fine with that, then just do that. I was okay with it, and I'll probably do that again today just so I don't dirty the drill mixer just yet. I'll wait until we have much bigger rooms that I'm working on to probably use that. But just for your knowledge, if you're doing a big room, it's probably easier to just use the hand mixer or the drill mixer thing. So while I was researching skim coating and stuff, there was a couple of things that I saw. There was, the traditional sanding, whether it was a pole sander or a hand sander or a big one, whatever people would rent or what have you. There was also something called wet sanding, which is where you take like a grout sponge, the big yellowy sponges, and you dip it in water, you kind of squeeze out the majority of the water, but then you take the damp sponge and you wipe it on the joint compound to sand it off a little bit, like to smooth it out. This did not work for me at all, and actually it kind of screwed me a little bit, because now I have areas that I have to go back and actually add more joint compound on top of to fix. Even though doing all of this by hand and on my own, and I'm not a professional, there are areas obviously where you can tell it's hand done. I like that look. My husband actually said he liked it too when he first saw it, because it kind of reminds me, at least, like hand done plaster, like really just organic feeling, very natural. But there are areas where I did the wet sanding, you can still see too much of the texture underneath. And so I'm gonna have to go back and actually fix those areas. So I would not recommend wet sanding. It didn't work out for me at all. It took way too much of the joint compound off the wall, revealed way too much of the texture, where if I would have just sanded it, anything that was revealed a little bit underneath, the sandpaper itself would have taken care of. So I think, knowing that and doing that, I will not wet sand ever again. So I don't recommend doing it that way. Also, on the note of traditional sanding, if you're gonna go that route with a power tool and you're gonna use a shop vac, know how to use a shop vac, like a wet, dry shop vac. I did probably 2/3 or a little bit more of the entire entryway before I realized my mistake. So I got the shop vac attached to my sander, thinking this is gonna be great because it's going to keep a lot of the mess out from everywhere else. Yes, I still blocked off the entryways, but that still did not help, because I did not have a bag in the shop vac. And so I basically was just shooting dust out of the shop vac all over the place, making a disastrous mess, and was getting upset because it was going everywhere. And I was not wearing the right protective gear also, which I do that. Don't be like me. Just get a mask that's proper, which I'll be doing for this part of the wall myself, because I had to take frequent breaks in between because of all the dust everywhere. And I was getting so mad because I was like, this is supposed to be a lot easier. Why is this not working? And so I ended up opening it, realizing the bag wasn't inside. I should have checked first. After I got the bag in there, significant difference. It kept so much more of the mess from going everywhere. It literally took me probably almost a week to get all of the dust from everywhere, and I still find it. I still find it in places. So it was just, it made it much more of a nightmare. It made the process much longer, and I wish I just would have known that first. So maybe watch a few videos on how to use a shop vac. I should have done that, or at least I should have asked my husband, but you know, because I hadn't used one yet. I've done a bunch of things with sanders and whatnot, but I've always just done those things outside. And so I never really cared to have like a shop vac on there. So I just never took the time to learn how to use it, and definitely do that. Just learn by my mistake. It'll save you so much time. So we'll definitely still be using the shop vac for in here, but I'll make sure there's bag in there, and it's a lot less messy that way because it does catch most of it, and there's still some debris obviously, but it's so much less. Good morning, you guys. It is the next day. So I remembered a couple of other things that I forgot to mention earlier on while I was doing this whole first coat here. This process, it can be messy. I find the messiest part to be mostly on myself, like my hands, or sometimes there will be flyaway bits in my hair. That's why I don't wear my glasses, because I don't want any splattering on my glasses. But those are the messiest parts to me, and then the sanding. So all the rest, like if there's little drips here and there, it's really not that bad. If you're making it super watery, then yes, it'll be like dripping. But I don't make it that watery. I just make it thin enough to really like paint on a decent little amount that I can smooth out. So if you're not color drenching the area, I would say that I would probably tape, especially if you're doing like contrasting trim and stuff, I would probably try to tape those too. But if you don't, something I will say is if you just like wipe off whatever drips onto them, get that sponge, the grout sponge anyways, so that you can come back and just clean that off with water. I would not like let it sit there the whole 12 hours or even through your entire time doing it or anything. I would just clean up a little bit right after each coat if it drips onto your trim and stuff like that, because then it'll wipe off really easily with the water, and it'll be clean trim again. I'm also going to show you how I get the corners, so that way you guys can see that. Put it down, sorry. Is actually pretty simple. I do use the longer taping knife that I have. I use it sort of, it's kind of like you would with a hawk, where you load the hawk with stuff, but instead of like taking from the hawk and putting it on the wall, you're just going to use this. So you just want to spread out your joint compound a little bit like that, so it's kind of like all the way across. I try really hard to avoid the very edge, just because it will be like, it starts to like leave these weird lines and it's annoying to me. So if you have like a perfectionist problem like I do, I try to like just do it. It doesn't need to be perfect yet, but it'll leave weird trowel like line things. So anyhow, so you just take your joint compound just like this, and I just like build it up as much as I can on the taping knife. Okay, so you have your corner and you have your taping knife. What I do is I just butt it up to the corner, then I kind of push on the taping knife itself with my finger, and what that does, I don't know if you can see, it pushes it into the corner, and then I just pull it out so that it gets all in there, and then pull it out. And I kind of, when I pull, by the way, I have it at sort of like a, it's not a steep angle, it's like this, so that you can really like smooth it out. And then you see, that's how you kind of get the corners, because just like painting, you can't really get the roller quite close enough. And then this little lip here, I've actually just been troweling only. And making it smooth. Whoop. But that is literally it. That's all you have to do to get the corners there. Or at least that's what I do. I'm sure there's probably like a corner knife, tool, whatever, that I just am not aware of. And so this is how I do it. And it works really nicely. And makes for a really smooth looking corner. So I like it. Obviously, if you do this and you've done this before and you know of a tool or something that would help someone to do that better, or even for me for the future rest of the house, please comment below and let me know what that is. I would love to check it out and try it out. I'm all for like making things easier instead of harder. This is just how I have come to start really doing all of these areas. So, okay, so back at it again. Another tip I would say is, if you're able to, like with us, you know, we have kids and stuff too, so we have a lot of appointments and things that we have to do sometimes. And today was one of those days, and so I started to do that second coat on, and I got only so far, and now it's, you know, like past 6 p.m. by the time that I'm actually able to get back at it. And so if you're able to, just know to make the time to do it, because now I'm gonna have to kind of, if you can see, you know, go back at it and whatnot, and in where I was going before. It's not that bad or big of a deal, but ideally I'd like to have wet edges as I continue through, just so that I can continue to smooth it and not have like a weird ridge or something. But if that's okay. And then I wanted to also say to make sure that you do, I found it easier. I had a mishap on the first time that I went through that, which was noticing that I didn't let that first coat really dry for that 12-hour period really quick. And then when I went to go do the second coat, because it was touch dry, it started to peel the layer off from underneath it because it wasn't fully dry. So 12 hours in between each coat, and it's going to be different based on your texture too. Our texture was, you know, a little bit kind of flat-ish, but still ridges, just not as like deep. So it'll all depend on all of that. So I wanted to also go ahead and show you the difference between the second coat and the first coat, since that's available right now, and so you guys can kind of see where it starts to really like smooth it out. Okay, so we're on coat 3, day 3. I came across another like tip that I thought would be nice, and I wanted to show you how I get the bullnose edges as well. So if you have those types like I do, then you can sort of know how to navigate them. It can be a little bit weird. Tip that I was going to give you was to start with the harder, tighter spaces. because if you start with everything else and then do those last, you're more than likely going to like scrape or touch the stuff that you've already kind of smoothed and perfected. And so if you do those tighter spaces first, then you don't even have to worry about it because, you know, they'll already be done. So I would definitely recommend doing that and then doing the edge right next to it right after that. So that way it's like a wet edge and you just keep going until, you know, you have to move on to the next area. And then I'll move on to the bullnose edges really quick as well. So I'll try to bring you in here. Let's see. I don't know if you can quite tell. I'm gonna bring you in as close as I can so that you can see. So as you can tell, it's just a rounded edge, and unlike, you know, like a corner piece. I don't even remember what those are called. I just remember the bullnose one because that's what we have. They're very pretty. They're nice curves, you know, with the flow it gives is really nice and beautiful, but they can be a little tricky if you're trying to smooth out their texture. So how I do it is when I'm working on this wall right next to it, I'll get as much, you know, product over as I can, and then I will simply just like kind of smooth it out and drag it like off. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how I do that instead of talk you through it because it's, I feel like, easier. Okay, so hopefully you were able to kind of see what I did there. I will say that sometimes it's easier to be on the like side where you're pulling the taping knife towards you so that you can really see that you're getting into the little groove areas, and then you can easily just smooth back out any little bumpies you created on the flat side of the wall. Pretty much how I do it. I'm sure there's a tool out there or a better way, but this is what has been working for me, so that's just what I've been doing. If you know of a tool that's better for it, please leave a comment below for everybody else that makes it easier or what have you. Please let me know. Another thing I wanted to talk about was the top bullnose edge right here. My taping knife, my trowel, like as you can see this curvature, it won't smooth it out. And so with a lot of this part, I'm trying to use like the foam brush, even my finger, just to smooth as much as I can of it out. So the previous thing that I showed you how to do on the vertical pieces of the bullnose, it's not going to work for this part. So I just wanted to mention that you should just use your fingers to smooth it out, or the foam brush, things like that. Mix in another little batch here really quick, and I thought of something else that I thought would be good to tell you. For the third coat, I think it will help you, at least it helps me. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so I already try to make it really, really smooth as I can. It is hard, it's not gonna be like perfect. Just to make the sanding easier. And so I think that if you try to make the last coat that you do, however many coats you're doing, as smooth as you can get it, because then when you go back to sand, it's just going to be a lot faster and a little easier for you to sand. And then the other thing that I was going to mention was the number of coats and stuff. So when I was researching on how to do skim coating and everything, there were so many people on there that said that, well, they say you should have a smooth finish in 2 coats. And I just don't feel like that's, especially for someone who's doing it themselves and isn't a professional like drywall finisher or anything like that, to like have that expectation for yourself. And then I feel also that depending on the texture that you have on your walls too, you know, you might be trying to knock down some of the texture a little bit and then doing like a few coats. And don't put that expectation on yourself or think you're doing anything wrong if you're doing more than 2 coats, because the end result is still the same, right? You're still looking for a smooth finish on the wall, and that's what you're getting. So I just think, don't worry about the 2 coats thing. I just saw that everywhere, and I just wanted to mention, like, I'm doing 3. So, yeah. Okay. Is this overkill? Maybe. But I have reason. So why I'm wearing the hairnet thing or the shower cap is because the last time that I sanded, I got the dust particles in my hair, and then when I went to go and take a shower afterwards, they all started to clump up, and it really freaked me out. It scared me. And so that's one of the tips that I was going to say, is that unless you don't care, I mean, if you don't care, then whatever. It came out fine, but I just in case. So I'm putting this on, and then of course, goggles and mask. Good morning, you guys. Ugh, I am pretty exhausted. I spent most of the evening yesterday getting all of this sanded down and everything. I was not able to get to the ceiling portion of like the paint, the sealer that goes on it. So I just have one last tip for you before I end this video here, because you don't need to watch me paint. You've already seen me paint with this color in this part of the entryway. So basically, my tip would be when you go to the cleanup portion of doing your skim coating, just use a damp washcloth. You'll still need to kind of wipe the walls down, just like if you were going to be sanding anything, really. You want to get any of that little tiny bits of excess dust off of there. The reason I feel like that's important is just I don't want any dust in my paint. And even though you're going to seal it, because regardless, it'll still be dusty. If you wipe your hand across it, it's still going to be dusty. So the other tip would be to make sure that you get the drywall sealer primer thing. So that way you can seal it properly and have it ready to be painted. So that's really all the tips that I've got for you, and little bits of mistakes that I made. I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and yeah, let me know if you're doing any skim coating and how your journey is going with that. I really actually enjoy stuff like this, so even though it takes a long time to get it all the way completed and all the way done and to the painting phase, I still really enjoy all of it. So, doing it to the rest of the house, it's going to take some hard work to get there, but by the time that we do, I'll be happy with all the wall texture, and it is a lot of work though. I will say that. So just know that going in. All right, you guys, bye, and I'll see you next time. Okay, I'm in. It's like my husband said Dexter in here. And it kind of is. This stuff isn't stuff that I've seen be talked about really. And this is just what I've been experiencing.